doing what I'm telling you, just saving the money, focusing on additional revenue sources, cutting the unnecessary expenses is the wave of making a future for yourself. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Make More podcast with Matt Heslin. I'm your host, Matt Heslin, and I'm glad to be with you today. I've been giving it a lot of thought that a lot of the podcasts we've done have been really helpful in terms of showing people how to make more money, showing people how to develop multiple streams of revenue, and we've studied a whole bunch of other topics. But it dawned on me when I was up in Park City this last week, I was there with my daughter and my wife, that what we haven't done is teach people how to save money or where they're potentially losing money without even thinking about it. So I wanted to spend some time going through and having a discussion about how to save money during a recession and during an inflation. The first thing that I want to talk about today is creating a budget. I started thinking about it when I was in my 20s and 30s. I wanted to save for a house, and I kept saving. I kept saying to myself, how am I going to get this done? I would get a salary increase, but I never had more money. And you guys may be experiencing that too, where you're following what I'm telling you, you're making more money, you've got multiple streams of revenue, but the money disappears at the end of the month. It's just gone. So today I want to share with you some ways to save money during a recession. And then I'm going to talk about ways that money could be evaporating and you don't even know it. Okay? So the first thing I want to talk about is making a budget. What I'd like you to do, I'd like to suggest, is that you take for the next 30 days a piece of paper and write down all your income on one side of the ledger. Draw a line down the piece of paper. And on one side, put your income. And on the other side, put expenses. And what I want you to do is I want you to keep every receipt that you spend at stores, at coffee, wherever you're spending money, your utility bills, your rent. I want you to write on the right side of the paper all your expenses of the month. And I want you to add up both the total revenue for the month and total expenses for the month. And what that's going to do is it's going to give you a glimmer into what you actually make and what you actually spend. It's very important that when we're going through a recession or we're going through inflation, that we begin to cut unnecessary expenses. And that's really the message I want to make today clear to you, that it's not enough just to develop more revenue. You've got to be strategic about where you spend the dollars that you have. It's important in a recession, which we are in, believe it or not. The media won't tell you that. But it's important in a recession or an inflation that you stretch that dollar, that you make it go further, that you make that money that you do have go further in terms of its purchasing power. And there's some ways to do that I'd like to share with you today. The first one, like I said, is to create a budget. Cut the unnecessary expenses. What you'll see when you go through that budget is you're going to see that there are things you just don't need to spend money on. There are things that are just, frankly, it's ridiculous. I mean, here I am, guilty as charged, holding a $7 cup of coffee. Who in the world needs a $7 cup of coffee? I mean, that's insane. So I want you to think about things like that, like going through and looking at essential versus non-essential expenses. What are some of the expenses you need and are justifiable, and not even justifiable, but necessary? And what expenses are totally unnecessary, like this $7 cup of coffee? I mean, it's good, but it ain't that good. Hold on a second. It's pretty good. The next thing is how you spend your money on groceries. Groceries are probably one of the most expensive commodities we're spending money on right now. And so what I'd like you to do is to start thinking about using, I know it sounds really old-fashioned, but electronic coupons to cut back on the cost per item. I want you to think about using, as an example, Costco has, as does Ralph's, gas stations with their with the grocery stores, and Chevron has teamed up with another grocery store. So you can get like 25 cents off per gallon if you use your Vons card or your Ralph's card at the gas station pump. And that's a great way to save money. It really is. One of the other expenditures that happens that people don't realize, and my daughter was guilty of this when she was living with me before she bought her condo, she would leave the air conditioning on all day long. I mean, can you imagine how much that costs? I mean, here in Southern California, it's very prohibitive. But I want you to think about checking lights. If you're not using lights, check the lights, shut them off. If you're not using HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, shut it off. If you don't need it, shut it off. Save on groceries by using electronic coupons, and at the gas pump by using the grocery store card. Go through your budget, take out all the things that are unnecessary at the end of the month. When you go through and you see all those items, like you're going to find you're spending $7 on a cup of coffee, 7 days a week. That's $50 a week. That's a lot of money. I mean, that's $200 a month. You don't need to spend that kind of money on that stuff. It's just not necessary. So one of the major things is to definitely go through, create a budget, definitely go through, find the unnecessary expenditures, and stop spending money on those things. One of the other things that I think is essential is to shop and compare. It's really essential that when you're buying something that you would buy, let's say from Best Buy or wherever, that you really compare prices, because there's a lot of savings out there on the internet. There's plenty of apps out there. There's plenty of comparison models that you can use. You can go on whatever your favorite platform is and find out how much the item is. And shop and compare. It's really important because you can save a lot of money. But then make sure that whatever you're buying, you need to buy, because you won't believe how much money you're going to save by following these tips. It's really incredibly simple, and it's really incredibly important, but you will save a lot of money, and you will also stretch your dollar a lot further. So at the end of the month, you actually have some savings, rather than what a lot of people are telling me is, hey, Matt, I'm doing what you're saying. I'm making more money, but at the end of the month, the money's gone. Well, that's because you have what I'm going to call leakage. And leakage is a concept where you don't even know you're losing money. You're not even aware of it. Like, you're aware of the $7 cup of coffee when you buy it, and you probably feel a little bit of guilt buying it if you're trying to stretch your money. I know I do. I'm not trying to. I don't necessarily need to stretch my money, but I feel guilty buying a $7 cup of coffee. Yet I do it anyway. So go figure. But a budget is critical. List your expenses, list your revenues for the month, add them all up, and then see what would happen if you were able to line out the unnecessary expenditures, if you were to line out all the things that you don't need that you're buying. I mean, it'd be so much easier to eat. Oh, the other thing is eating out. Eating out is so expensive now. It is crazy. We were in Park City this last week, and 2 sandwiches, or maybe 3 sandwiches, and three sodas was like $60. I mean, that's insane. If you're trying to stretch your budget and you're trying to save money in a recession and or inflation, that's eating out's got to go. It's generally speaking not good for you, right? But B, it's incredibly expensive. So these are some ways that you can save money and stretch your dollars. One of the other ways that you can save money is by reviewing your insurance policies. If you have health insurance, seek other alternatives to your current provider. Shopping around can save you a lot of money. I have an apartment building down in Houston, and we have 400 units down there. And my partner and I were told that because of all the hurricanes and earthquakes and so on and so forth, that they were taking our insurance from $300,000 a year for the insurance to $1.3 million per year. I mean, that would have taken that property and just destroyed all of the income. Well, come to find out, it was because we were with an insurance carrier who had 20,000 units get hit during the great storm down in Houston years ago. And so because we were with that property manager who bought that insurance, we were subject to that increase. Well, my partner wisely shopped it around, and we got it down to $380,000. So you can imagine he basically saved the property for us. So my advice to you is insurance: health insurance, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, whatever kind of insurance we're talking about, you need to make sure you're getting the best deal and the biggest bang for your buck on the insurance. That's a major savings. Imagine he saved us $1 million a year. That's a lot on insurance. So make sure you're looking at your policies. Make sure you're meeting with your agent. Make sure you're shopping annually, every year. I know it's a pain in the ass, but you'll be surprised how much money the insurance companies are charging now for insurance. It's up on average about 60% across the U.S. So it's very expensive. The second part of what I want to talk about in terms of saving money during a recession, and or at least stretching your money, or not losing your money at least, is I mentioned impulse buying, and the impulse buying is one thing. Like you'll go to the grocery store, you know you needed 9 items, but you see the goodies up at the check stand, M&Ms, peanut M&Ms, Snickers, you name it, and all of a sudden you find 5 more items in your basket you didn't need. Well, that's probably $10 right there. So impulse buying is a great way for the retailers to make more money. It's a great way for you. It's a horrible way for you to lose money because you're not paying attention. You're just acting on impulse. Yeah, that looks good. I'm going to buy it. So impulse buying is one of the biggest ways you lose money. And keep in mind, impulse buying isn't necessarily bad. It's just expensive. I'll tell you one of the other things I found in doing a lot of research was one of the biggest money suckers for people is unused subscriptions. So, we have, at our home, we have satellite TV, but then we have all of the add-on apps. I can't tell you how expensive those add-on apps are. I mean, like $50 to $100 a month per app. So if you got ESPN, Hulu, you got Amazon Prime, you got all these other, those things add up. How many of those do you really need? What you'll find out is YouTube TV for like $150 a month, you get almost everything. So I could literally kill that satellite bill, save $300 a month, kill all those other apps, probably save another $300 a month, which I'm going to do after this podcast because I'm getting irritated now. But it just sucks because the other thing is don't sign up for those things where they bill you every month. The billing of the cyclical billing every month where they come in and they go, it's just $6 a month. So now it's $72 a year, and you go, holy crap. If I had my assistant go through my American Express bill and look at all the stuff that we spend money on. And it is crazy how much money we spend that we don't need to spend. That becomes the problem. One of the biggest expenses people fail to realize is the interest rates on their credit cards. You find out when you get first start a credit card, it's exciting. You're going to build your credit, and having a healthy credit score is important. But the other thing is, once you start spending money on that credit card, pay it off at the end of the month. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. At the end of every month, you pay that credit card bill off, you'll have no interest. But if you don't pay that credit card bill off, that's going to run you about 24%. Now, can you imagine? I can't get 24% on my investments, so I sure as hell don't want to pay 24% on my credit cards. And you shouldn't either. Credit card debt is killing people's budgets now. Most of the people who are really struggling paycheck to paycheck have not followed any of these strategies. They may not have known about them, but now you do. And so they're buying impulse items, they're buying unnecessary, uncompared shopping items, and they're putting them on their credit cards. And then they can't pay it off at the end of the month, and the credit card bill has now 24%, 2% a month tacked on. Now you owe that on top of the credit card bill you didn't pay. And then the next month it's the same. And then you get in literally to a cycle you can't get out of. And the credit card companies know this, and they love it. So my advice to you is pay off those high interest credit card rates, those credit card debts. Get rid of them. Get them out of your life. They're a cancer, and they're certainly a detriment to you being able to grow your wealth and save some money during a recession. One of the things that I've come to find out over the years is that your bank is not your friend. Everybody has money in the bank, but they pay you nothing on your deposits in your checking account. They pay nothing. but yet they loan the money out at 6 and 7%. So you can imagine the money the banks are making. If you need a loan, better to go to friends and family who have money, who will make you a fair deal, than to go to a bank who's going to charge you 7% and putting money in a checking account at 0% or 1% interest. Banks are not your friends. I tell the story that when I was younger and I started my career, no banks would lend me any money. I couldn't get a loan for any property. And I had a good credit score and I had a good project, but they wouldn't lend me any money. Now today, every banker wants to lend me money. They compete to lend me money. That's because I've built a successful business, or 5. I've gone out and I've built my credit score. I don't have any credit card debt. The only debt I have is asset debt. Asset debt is debt on assets that are cash flowing, so that that debt gets paid by the cash flow. You don't want to be having debt that you can't pay. So credit card debt is a killer. It's a cancer. I'm telling you to get rid of it. Probably the fastest thing you should do out of all the things we've talked about today is get rid of the credit card debt. And we're all guilty of having more than we should. When I was younger, I had so much credit card debt, but I just literally took 20% of my paycheck and just paid it off. And once I was free of it, I was like, I'm never doing that again. Credit card debt is a killer. Dealing with banks, although it's an evil necessity, it's also very unhealthy for your financial future. Better when I started my company, I went to friends and family for my first loan and got the loan done. And then when the project was super successful, then the banks all wanted to deal with me. So if you're trying to get money from a bank and you're just starting out, it's going to be very difficult. The banks make money by just holding onto the reserves. So the federal government, you are paying the banks right now 4% to do nothing with the money, to not lend it out. It's crazy. So the banks were made to lend money, but they don't lend money. They make interest from the Fed. Our Federal Reserve, who prints the money, then gives them the money, then gives them interest on the money, and then won't lend you the money. I would say that the banks are just not our friend. I'm not a bank hater, but I'm certainly not a bank lover. So get rid of the credit card debt. Deal with banks only when necessary. Make sure you try not to buy those impulse items. Try not to go out and eat as often as you might like to. Going out and eating dinner for a party of 2 now has got to be over $150. And if you figure that's just one time a week, that's $600 a month. I mean, think of all that money that's just spilling. And it's when you're in the moment, it feels good. And when you're in the moment, it feels like, hey, this is something I want to do. What I want you to do is develop a new discipline of saying, stop, just halt. Is this something I really need? And if it isn't, walk away. If it is, okay, buy it. But if you're going to buy it, comparison shop. Make sure that it's the cheapest one on the market or the least expensive. I hate the word cheap. The least expensive one on the market so that you're not overpaying. And then go through, like I said, look at all your insurance. Make sure that you comparable shop all of your insurance, everything. Homeowners, health, auto, all the insurance you've got, you comparable shop it every year. You don't have to do it yourself. You have an insurance broker. Make the insurance broker bring you 3 quotes on each form of insurance that you're going to buy. So I think we've given you a lot of information that should be really helpful. It all starts with the budget. Make sure you do the exercise on the budget. I know it's a pain in the butt, but it is essential. Get the budget down where you know where you're spending every dime. I guarantee you, if you do what I've told you in this video, you're going to save thousands of dollars a year. And you know what? That's money you can put away for savings, for the purchase of a home, for wedding planning, for whatever. I mean, you can save thousands of dollars. I want to touch a little bit more about banks because I'm as you can tell, Thomas Jefferson once said, it's not the politicians you need to be worried about, it's the big banks. And look at what Wells Fargo has done to their customers, where they go out and they open false accounts that you never knew about, and charge you interest and charge you monthly fees for it. You got to be careful with the banks. And if you're new to dealing with banks and you've got a project, I'll tell you a story. So a developer called me a week ago and said, I'm doing my first deal. I can't get a bank to lend me any money. This project is solid as can be. And I looked at the pro forma, and it was a great deal. I mean, he was going to make a lot of money. The bank would have made a lot of money, but the bank said, you don't have any projects under your belt, so they wouldn't lend him any money. So my advice to him was, as my advice is to you, if you need money, let's just say you just need money to pay off this high interest credit card debt. I mean, one thing you should do if you can is get rid of that credit card debt. Like I've said, go to your parents, go to an investor, go to people who have money, who are willing to. I mean, a guy like me would lend money out at 10, 11%. I don't need 24%. So you could come and make a deal with a friend or family where you offer to pay them 10 or 11% or less if you can get it. And they can have an interest in your financial health by helping you with that. I've done it before for people. And you know what? It's a great way to help people, number one, and it's a great way for people to get out of ugly debt. If you're doing a project right now and you're trying to do one of the projects that Ron Jones talked about, flipping houses, or you want to buy your first house, don't go to the bank first. Go to the bank last. Go to an accomplished partner who's got the skill sets that you need, who's got the experience that you don't have, who's got the talents that you're developing, and has the capability to loan the project money. That's the best way, and that's how I got started, as friends and family. And you know what? You'd be surprised how helpful friends and family want to be. They want you to succeed. And if they have the money, especially if you're a Gen Z or a millennial, and you're just starting out, there's no shame in asking for money. There's no shame at all in asking for a loan. But you're going to need to demonstrate that you can pay it back. So if you have let's say you have $25,000 in credit card debt, and they're charging you 25% a year, I mean, it's criminal. But let's say that's what's going on. And you come to me and say, hey, Matt, I did my revenue expense sheet like you told me. I've done all the revenue enhancement activities you told me. I did all the cost saving elements you've told me. And now I just got to get rid of this credit card debt. And here's how I'm going to pay it. I'm going to make an extra $1,000 a month doing a second job, and I'll pay you $500 of that $1,000. So you know what? In like 2 years, it's paid off, and you have no credit card debt. So make sure you try to get creative. Don't be subject to the banks. The banks just love sucking 24 or 25% out of you. I mean, they have no conscience, zero, none. And so, to all you bankers who didn't help me when I needed help, fuck you. I wish I could tell you that I love you guys, but I just don't. I want the people out here in America who are listening, my listeners, to understand we are going to succeed together. We're going to make it together, and we're going to do it by doing things smart. But you got to do what I'm telling you to do. You can't just listen and then walk away and not do anything and expect to succeed. Half of learning is listening. The other half of learning is doing. So you got to get in there and do what I'm telling you to do. Get rid of the credit card debt. Get rid of the impulse buying. Make sure you're comparison shopping. Make sure you shop your insurance. All of your insurance. Make sure that you get rid of the credit card debt, like I've said 1,000 times. Don't deal with the banks if you don't have to. Get a loan from friends and family if that's what you need. Especially if you got high credit card debt, get the family and friends to pay you, or to loan you money rather. They'll love getting 11%. Where are they going to get 11%? So if you can pay somebody 11% right now, they're going to do cartwheels. Especially if you can show them how you're going to repay them. You will get a loan, I guarantee it. So those are all things that I think are important for you to learn and understand. I've just been thinking about it. We've been teaching you ways to make money, but a lot of people are saying, I'm doing what you're telling me, but there's more month than there is money. Well, that's because your leakage, the money that you're losing because you're not paying attention, or you are paying attention and you have no discipline. You got to put discipline in the equation. To have the discipline to create a budget, follow the budget meticulously. I mean, I looked back on my success, and I was looking at my Excel spreadsheets from when I was 23, 24. I had planned my whole budget year by year by year, and I had a goal. We're going to go through a goal setting workshop together. But every year I put my goals together, my financial goals, my spiritual goals, my emotional goals, my relational goals, my health goals, all sorts of goals. I do it every November so that by the time January rolls around, I'm ready to go. And in that same time, I would put together a budget, and that budget would be for the forthcoming year. And I would sit down with my wife and share the budget. She would choke, which I understand. She would choke, but we would live with it. And you know what? We were able to buy our first house in Huntington Beach in 1999. And that home I bought for $700,000, sold for $1.7 million. So doing what I'm telling you, just saving the money, focusing on additional revenue sources, cutting the unnecessary expenses is the wave of making a future for yourself. That house went from $700,000 to $1.7 million in 10 years. And that's amazing. And then we've bought another house down here in San Juan Capistrano that's doubled in value. And, so we have a house in Park City, which is going to double in value. And so my point to you is, if you buy assets, remember we talked about this, buy cash flowing assets, additional revenue sources. So if you use all the stuff we've talked about, which is all those additional revenue streams, all the ways to save money, all the ways to avoid leakage, you're going to be solid. You're going to be in a much, much, much better position financially. You'll be in a position that most people will be envious of. So guys, I'm glad you tuned in. This was an important podcast. Share this with your friends. Share this with your neighbors. Share this with your parents, your brothers and sisters. Because if you do what I'm telling you to do, you're going to be successful. Everything I've given you from my heart. And I'm giving it to you the best I can on my weekend because I want you to succeed. I know how it feels to struggle financially. I've been there. And this side of it feels much better than that side of it. So it's all about discipline, though. If you can employ the discipline to do everything I've told you to do today, replay this video. This thing's probably 30 minutes. Replay it, write it down, and then do it. You got to do it if you're going to be it. So get involved with the learning process of writing all this down. Take notes from this podcast, and then do it, and you'll be successful. All right. Until next time, cheers, my friends.